Hello everyone, warm welcome. It's an honour to have you here at the Saphira Centre of Shamanism, where we break down the ancient esoteric practices of shamanism and the occult, bringing them into balance with the deep psyche. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It's an honour to have you here. Thank you for joining me once again. Be sure to find me over on my membership programs if you're wanting to work with me. First link in the description of this video for my premium membership service, the Saphira Shamanic School. Perfect if you're wanting more close access to me, access to powerful training and initiation webinars taking place multiple times each month, as well as many other things. Or check out the Patreon in the second link if you're wanting access to powerful initiatory systems, practices, and various occult path workings, as well as in-depth guidance on preparation, invocations of various different spirits, and advanced trauma integration work, with new content uploaded multiple times each week. You can gain access at just £20 per month. I look forward to seeing you over there. So today, we're going to be speaking about a very important but controversial subject, a subject that many people bypass within their evolutionary process. This is extremely important for those who are on any form of self-development, genuine self-development that is built off of individuation and becoming more open and vulnerable, but it is especially important for those who are into occult initiation or those who are wanting to get into occult initiation, because these practices are designed to literally rip you open and return you to optimal vulnerability and receptivity. The topic today is relationships in your evolutionary process and why they are essential for you to be able to evolve effectively. You cannot do this process on your own, regardless of what the programming of society has planted into you, and regardless of the New Age spiritual beliefs around needing to get to a point in your evolution and sovereignty where you don't need anybody else. You need other people to evolve. You need relationships to evolve, and anybody who thinks otherwise is not connected to their deepest levels of vulnerability. Period. Okay, those who believe that you do not need relationships to evolve is lying to themselves and is likely holding on to severe relational trauma that they are not prepared to deal with as of yet. I cannot blame people, because the core of societal level trauma is relational trauma. Okay, and this is coming from somebody who I, for myself, was, and in some ways still is, amazing at keeping people at arm's length. I used to carry the belief that I needed to be on my own all of the time, and that was coming from relational trauma. It was only when I started getting into occult initiation via the Qliphothic realms, whereby I really started to open up properly and really started to see and started to pull in one very important dynamic specifically that was very much there to act as this Scarlet Woman archetype. Okay, this person has been able to see straight into me. Okay, see through my identity structures, see through the lies I tell myself and the world, and evoke the deepest repressed energies and hold them and not shut them down. Okay, and this is the importance of the Scarlet Woman archetype. This archetype is known as the Red Lady of Babalon and is very present when you get into occult initiation, and if you reach a point in your evolutionary process where you have done your capacity on your own, you will, if you are open to it genuinely, you will attract a partner who is somewhat your opposite, okay, or opposite, but also somewhat a double of you. So we're going to be discussing this concept in depth, diving into why you need relationship dynamics to be able to effectively evolve in your evolutionary path. Absolutely essential, so definitely stay tuned. So why do you need relationship dynamics to be able to evolve effectively? The answer is actually very simple, but there are different layers and considerations that one needs to look at. Now, relationship dynamics are essential simply because they show you things that you are not able to tap into on your own. They show you things about the world around you, and they also mirror your internal process back to you constantly. Okay, the ego cannot perceive itself fully, it simply cannot look at itself. So your shadow, your unconscious mind, communicates with you through archetypal representations that manifest within the world around you, that are there to show you things about yourself that you need to process and integrate. Now, this isn't about blaming yourself for the actions of other people. Okay, if somebody has hurt you in the past, it's not about looking at that and being like, okay, how is this my fault? It's not about gaslighting yourself. What it is about is being able to find relatability and understand where your responsibility is within that given manifestation. In other words, what this archetype really represented within you. Okay, so for example, if you are continuously attracting narcissistic partners, I've forgotten the amount of times I've heard that, okay? New age spiritual women going, oh, I keep attracting narcissistic partners. Oh, he's a narcissist. Oh, all of that. Yeah. And the same with men as well, by the way. We need to understand that if we are attracting a narcissistic partner or consistently attracting narcissistic partners, we are not owning our narcissistic energy, or we are in denial of our narcissistic energy. It is really that simple. Just the same as if you attract angry people towards you and you've always got angry people around you, there is a very good chance that you are not feeling your anger, or you have repressed anger and rage that you are not aware of about yourself. So everyone in the external world, no matter how big or small the encounter, is going to represent an archetypal mirror for your evolutionary process. Okay, the shadow operates through paradox. The challenge is being able to find relatability in the world around you, keeping the awareness that your shadow is communicating with you through the world around you, simply because the shadow cannot communicate with you directly because the ego is filtering it out. Okay, the ego is not a bad thing. The ego is not impure. It's not like a lot of the New Age would say about the ego being a force of impurity that is a bad thing. The ego is there to filter your reality and make it more comprehensible. Okay, it just gets stuck in different mechanisms and various different parts that have been established specifically to keep you safe from perceived danger. So the real challenge with any form of individuation is being able to find relatability within the world around you. But many on this evolutionary path, and initially I was no different, many want to perceive themselves as separate from the world around them. Okay, many people get into various initiatory systems. Maybe someone would become a therapist or get into therapy in order to use the mask of self-development in order to basically fuel greater separation from the world around them. Now, being in a genuine, open, and vulnerable relationship shatters these illusions. Okay, trust me, life is much easier when you are single in many ways. Okay, life is much easier. Is it better? No. No. Okay, I used to think it was better. No, it's not better. But life can definitely be easier when you are single, purely because you don't have that constant Scarlet Woman spotlight shining into your shadow self and showing you things about yourself that you are not owning. Now, this Scarlet Woman archetype that I'm talking about here, this is an archetype that is resonant for anybody who is wanting a genuine relationship, or anybody who is in a genuine, open, and vulnerable relationship that is built with alchemy and self-development at the forefront of that relationship dynamic, which means you come together to empower each other, to grow together, and to hold each other. Yes, these relationship dynamics do exist, but you have to be in resonance. In other words, you have to be at a point in your evolution whereby you are ready to pull in that type of relationship dynamic. Now, understand that as much as relationship dynamics are essential for your evolution and to be able to perceive things about yourself that you are not able to perceive on your own, this doesn't mean that you rush into a re-traumatizing relationship dynamic, okay? There is a fine line between integration and vulnerability and blatant re-traumatization and fragmentation. Ultimately, you need to be in a relationship dynamic whereby you are experiencing the opposite to what you experienced as a child. Okay, this could shatter a lot of illusions for various viewers who are watching this, but in order for a relationship dynamic to be alchemical, there has to be a level of responsibility and accountability from both sides to ensure that both parties are experiencing the opposite to what was experienced in the childhood trauma, which means if you are in a relationship dynamic whereby you are basically in a continuous process whereby you are being rejected by the person just the same as you were rejected when you were a child, that is not an alchemical relationship dynamic. Okay, many people stay in re-traumatizing relationship dynamics, or they gravitate towards re-traumatizing relationship dynamics because it's paradoxical and inverted, because it is what is safe. Okay, it's what is safe. The suffering to the ego is a more safe option than actually being in a true alchemical, vulnerable relationship dynamic. Because in order to be in an alchemical relationship dynamic, like one that is manifested by the Scarlet Woman archetype, ultimately you have to realize that you are going to be cracked open. Okay, you're going to be cracked open, and you have to be okay with this person perceiving everything about you. Okay, this is somebody that you feel comfortable sharing your deepest perversions with. Okay, sharing your deepest perversions with somebody who you are able to be honest with and open with, and you're able to voice triggers when they come up and not be shut down or not be blamed and not be gaslit. Okay, it's inverted, but many relationship dynamics, or many people who are in re-traumatizing relationship dynamics, are in them because it is what's safe and they simply do not know any different. That's one trauma response that takes place as a result of consistent relational trauma. Okay, either someone continuously attracts the same types of partners or stays in a relationship dynamic that they know is not good for their evolution, but they just stay there for ease and because it's safe. Or when somebody has experienced a lot of relational trauma, they separate themselves completely and remove the opportunity to be in a relationship dynamic. And this one, I definitely fell into this camp. Okay, I definitely fell into this camp. I experienced a lot of relational trauma sort of in my early years, as well as in my adolescent years, a lot of rejection from women, a lot of rejection in school, all kinds of things like that, that created and as well as like a very interesting home, enmeshment dynamic. All of that created a need to basically be away from women, but it also generated a real anger for women as well. Okay, and another thing, when this Scarlet Woman archetype manifests, is being able to see and perceive your manipulative qualities and take ownership for them so that they don't pollute the relationship dynamic. Okay, this is what I mean. It really results in a level of alchemy, but in order for that level of alchemy to be possible to attain, there has to be openness, vulnerability, responsibility, and accountability for everything. Otherwise, the Scarlet Woman dynamic can very easily re-traumatize. Okay, both people have to be fully in the relationship dynamic. Okay, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I have made mistakes with the Scarlet Woman. Okay, I have made mistakes, in relationship dynamics. I have had manipulative qualities in relationship dynamics without even consciously realizing I had them. I've had narcissistic qualities in relationship dynamics. Okay, I've had victim energy playing out in my relationship dynamics, all without realizing it consciously. Okay. So I used to really think the easiest way to deal with relational trauma is to not be in a relationship dynamic at all. And that is a very easy response. I used to pride myself on being able to keep people away. Okay, I used to pride myself. I used to be like, yeah, I'm very good at putting boundaries in with people. I'm really good at putting boundaries in with people, not realizing that the whole thing was a relational trauma response and my own resistance towards being truly open and vulnerable with the world around me. Okay, so in order for these real alchemical relationships to actually be possible to maintain, there has to be that openness, there has to be that accountability, and it does require both parties, not just one, but both parties to be on a deep process of individuation themselves. And this is a very important thing. Okay, many people who have worked with me, they get in touch and, they're asking, how can I get my partner to do more of this sort of work? Or how can I get my husband to do this? Or, how can I get my wife to do that? And the truth is that you can't. This is the thing, okay? In order for you to be on a genuine evolutionary process, you need a relationship dynamic that isn't just some random person in that respect. It's not, somebody who is a mirror of your father wound or your mother wound. It's somebody who represents, yes, that motherly archetype slash that fatherly archetype, but represents the polar opposite to what was experienced as a child. And all you have to do is ask, okay, what was required for your parents or your guardians to take responsibility for themselves? Ultimately, a lot of trauma integration work, a lot of shadow work. Okay, so people need to be on a genuine process of individuation and a genuine journey of integration if the Scarlet Woman relationship is actually going to work and be sustainable. The issue is that many people say that they are on a genuine trauma integration journey, but many are just hiding behind the mask of that. Okay, many people go into therapy, become shamans through shamanic training, okay, get into occult initiation, do all of this outer layer work, but inside they're using it to actually perceive themselves more as separate from the world around them to avoid deeper levels of accountability. And the Scarlet Woman relationship dynamic is there to crack all of that open. Okay, crack all of that open and literally seduce you into your evolution. Okay, literally get you evolving through that continuous self-reflection, continuous accountability, and ultimately allowing yourself to be held and allowing you to hold them. Okay, it's the biggest trial of reciprocity. Okay, it's the biggest trial of, putting the same amount of energy in from both sides. Okay, so what I'm basically saying here is that if you are on a genuine process of individuation and you're actually integrating your different parts and you're actually using your self-development work to become more open and vulnerable with the world around you, the truth is that in order for you to continue to evolve, and if you are really as committed to your evolution as you say you are going to need a relationship dynamic that is alchemical. And that relationship dynamic cannot possibly be a normal relationship dynamic as programmed by society. Okay, it cannot be that relationship dynamic that everybody appears to want. Okay, having this by a certain age, having that by a certain age, getting married by a certain age, living according to these societal level constructs. No, if you are on a genuine path of individuation, your soul is going to be hungry for something far greater than that. And if you go into those types of dynamics and dumb yourself down and try and fit into a normal societal relationship, then you're not going to have your needs met in that relationship dynamic. It is that simple. You won't have, no relationship dynamic will meet your needs unless they are able to meet you where you are and act as that mirror. Okay, if you're on a genuine process of evolution, normal mundane relationships are not going to do you justice. Okay, you are going to need something that is going to stimulate you, that is going to hold your evolutionary attention, that is going to result in constant self-reflection and constant individuation and constant sort of actually observing your own stuff and taking accountability for your own stuff. Whereas if somebody who, say, is on a genuine process of individuation and then tries to get into a mundane level relationship, then they're either going to be re-traumatized or they're just not going to have their needs met in that relationship by any way whatsoever. Okay, the whole point of a Scarlet Woman relationship dynamic is to evoke your past trauma so that that past trauma can be held and the needs of your inner child can then be met by that person in a way that is not parasitic, but in a way that is ultimately reciprocal. Okay, otherwise you're going to be drained by a normal mundane relationship. Okay, now what do most societal level relationships look like? Okay, most societal level relationships are trauma bonds. Okay, people are attracted to their parents in different forms, basically. Okay, you are likely attracted by default, unless you've done a lot of relational trauma work, you are likely attracted to people who are mirrors of your parents to some extent. Okay, if you're a woman who received rejection from the father or had a vacant father, then it's not unusual that you will seek out men that are emotionally unavailable without actually realizing it. If you are a man who experienced the same on the mother's side or experienced a sort of enmeshment dynamic with the mother, then it's not unusual for you to be looking for a mother in a different physical form, which means you unconsciously are going to actually find those qualities, the qualities of your father or of your mother, attractive within the opposite sex or within the same sex, okay, whether you're homosexual or heterosexual or whatever that is. Okay, you are by default, according to unprocessed trauma, going to be pulled in to relationship dynamics that are a direct mirror of the trauma of the parents, because that's what's safe. Okay, it's what's safe, paradoxically speaking. So a lot of relationship dynamics are trauma bonds because they represent mirrors for each other's trauma. So then those relationships either become extremely re-traumatizing or they just end up satisfying their own falsehoods and not growing at all and holding each other in unhelpful coping strategies. That's very common. You then have what I call the settler relationship dynamic. And this is a relationship dynamic that on the surface appears beautiful, and maybe even during the relationship dynamic it may seem absolutely beautiful, but in reality there's no growth at all, because all that relationship dynamic is doing is validating roles and masks that both people find comfortable within their day-to-day lives. So this is very common for those types of couples who have been together for years, or like high school sweethearts, or all things like that, all types of relationships that fall into that sort of camp. Okay, it's very, very common for people who have been together for a very, very, very long time, because they have essentially come together and it's really felt, we complete each other. Oh, we complete each other. That's beautiful. But really, it's not actually completing anything that is deeply evolutionary by any means. But what it's really doing is completing each other's falsehood. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that in nature, really. It all depends on what you need from your evolutionary path. But what I'm saying is that these are the most common societal level relationship dynamics, okay? Either re-traumatizing dynamics because of a trauma bond, or that sort of settler dynamic, which is just validating each other's falsehoods and masks that feel safe to each individual. Okay, and that kind of relationship dynamic, if you're somebody who is just wanting to live a quiet life without any real challenge to your ego whatsoever. But the issue with that is that at this point in our evolution, at the point where this video is being made in 2025, These types of dynamics are filtering out because a lot of us, the reason why we are here at this time is ultimately to evolve. And the issue is that many people want to settle into these dynamics, but the truth is that they don't hold the evolutionary capacity to be able to actually take the soul through the process that it came into this incarnation for. Only a Scarlet Woman relationship dynamic can do that. Okay, only a Scarlet Woman relationship dynamic does have the capacity to hold deep karma, purification, and alchemy. So, how does the Scarlet Woman manifest? The Scarlet Woman manifests through people around you that you continuously see and come into contact with. The Scarlet Woman can take on temporary manifestations in the physical plane, whether it's somebody who manifests in front of you literally just to expose an illusion about yourself and then disappears. The most common form is in a very strong connection, romantically speaking. Okay, so once you have got to a certain process or a certain point within your evolution, and this is particularly prominent within occult-based initiatory systems, you've got to a point whereby you've shed so much of your old self to the point where you, in order to actually be able to continue evolving, you need that mirror of somebody else. Okay, at which point the Scarlet Woman archetype comes in naturally. Okay, the Scarlet Woman archetype is not something that you look for. Okay, and when I say Scarlet Woman, I'm not just referring to me being a man and then me attracting a woman in that respect. I'm referring to this happens for all sexes, all sort of orientations, whatever that means for you, realistically speaking. So if you're homosexual, don't be surprised if you then attract a man who is then a direct mirror for you. Okay, exactly the same. Or if you're a man and you're homosexual, you attract a man who's a mirror of you, and vice versa if you are a woman. Okay, but understand that this person is going to come in through nothing else other than resonance with the true will. Okay, so it's unlikely that you will find this person on a dating app. Okay, very, very unlikely, because the reason why people get dating apps in the first place normally is out of lack. Okay, they normally are, they feel pressure to meet somebody. The whole intent behind it is built off of scarcity, and then that relationship dynamic just gets built off of that same scarcity. Not in all cases, admittedly, but understand that this Scarlet Woman archetype and the different forms in which this Scarlet Woman archetype can take on, it really is something that is going to come in naturally without you even looking for it. Okay, my primary Scarlet Woman archetype, who came in before my Qliphothic initiatory process, is, literally came in, literally like, just came in naturally, like no, didn't even go looking for anything whatsoever. It literally just happened on its own without anything in that respect. Yeah, so understand that these types of connections do not come in through you actively looking for them, because when you are actively looking for them, what's basically happening is that you are generating scarcity, okay, through the need to find somebody. And then you are pulling in a dynamic which is most likely going to be a trauma bond, particularly if your childhood trauma was based off of scarcity. So understand that Scarlet Woman archetypes will be pulled in naturally through resonance alone. For me, the Scarlet Woman sort of took on what I call a preparation form in order to prepare me for the full Scarlet Woman. Okay, so when I was going through a stage of my shamanic initiation, a certain point in the initiation, which we call the North, and the North is basically like the abyssal realm of medicine wheel based shamanism. Okay, it's the abyssal realm which connects you to your soul and to your deepest level vulnerability. So what happened within this particular stage of my initiation is that I experienced so much dissolving in my system, and I attracted a partner that was a sort of mirror of where I was at the time, but it was just a natural sort of attraction. It wasn't something that I looked for in any way. It literally just basically just came to me in that sense. And basically the purpose of this relationship dynamic, even though it was very, very short relationship dynamic, The purpose of this relationship dynamic was to crack the shell around my heart. Okay, so the Scarlet Woman can very easily take on what I call like diluted forms in that respect, or like different forms according to how ready you are to embrace that connection. So, this connection that I had with this particular person was at the time the most beautiful connection that I had ever felt. And, you know, it did crack me open and got me open and receptive and all of those things. I felt held, all of those things, but practically it was not able to work. Okay. We were living completely different lives, like on completely different paths, realistically speaking. Completely different paths. Lived like literally like in Cornwall and I'm in Sussex in the UK. So like basically lived in a different country. And, you know, basically it came around specifically to crack the shell around my heart and actually show me that real, genuine, open and vulnerable relationships that can hold the capacity of evolution that I'm seeking actually exist. Okay, so this relationship dynamic had the literal role to crack open the shell around the heart, open my receptivity, and open up my desire for that type of partnership anyway. And as I started to connect later down the line, as I started to connect with more demonolatry based practices and primordial chaos based entities, specifically Lilith, as soon as I started building a connection to Lilith, that is when the pure Scarlet Woman archetype manifests on my path naturally. Okay, before my Qliphothic initiation, I'd say manifesting on my path about probably about 10 months before my Qliphothic initiation, before I went into the Qliphoth. So this relationship from the get-go, after going through the preparation, this relationship from the get-go was literally like, it was very open, very vulnerable, and it's literally like I've known this person for many, many, many lifetimes. Okay. And when I first got into this relationship dynamic, I was not willing to own certain parts about myself. I was not ready. And then all of a sudden, this person is mirroring certain things back to me. Okay, showing me my narcissistic qualities, not in her behaviors, but showing me my narcissistic qualities, showing me my manipulative qualities, you know, and all of these things. And at the time, I was not ready to see that in that respect. But in time, I was like, okay, I took ownership of that and actually acknowledged that, okay, no, like the the separation, the bubble that I was trying to create, this narcissistic bubble, because that's what this illusion of separation is. It is a narcissistic bubble that I was trying to maintain. And then this pure Scarlet Woman archetype came along, and we're still together now, and completely burst that bubble, and it felt very uncomfortable. Okay, at first I was like, this isn't safe. Okay, this isn't safe. I don't feel safe in this relationship dynamic. This is not a safe relationship dynamic. Um, but really what I was doing was avoiding vulnerability. It's really is as simple as that. Okay, it's important to understand that there is a fine line. Okay, sometimes we tell ourselves that certain relationship dynamics are not good for us because we're scared of the vulnerability. Okay, and realistically, when I was trying to find reasons to not be in this Scarlet Woman relationship dynamic, and was doing everything in my power at the time to actually not be in any relationship dynamic at all, the harder it was on my body because I could not find a tangible reason for my logical mind slash ego to latch onto as to not be in that relationship dynamic. This person was perfect for me. Okay. The physical attraction was absolutely there, more so than I've had with anybody else. The emotional attraction, everything is just a direct mirror with this individual, and it's beautiful and it's opening me up and all of these things. And my ego is like, I don't like this in that sense. This is how it was initially in this Scarlet Woman dynamic. It's like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Okay. And I tried to escape it. But as I tried to escape it, the harder it was on my body because like my soul was going like, no, 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 you have to embrace this dynamic now. Okay. My inner child was literally there, like, you know, reaching for this person in that respect. And my protector parts were like, no, 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 this is not safe. This is not safe. But then in time, as I got closer to the Qliphoth, then I started to feel more comfortable in this sort of relationship dynamic. As the relationship progressed, I started to really pick up on realistically what being in a real relationship is actually like, and that is ultimately meeting each other's needs, learning how to meet each other's needs, okay, understanding what each other's needs are, being able to voice needs, and being able to hold each other through certain types of challenges and situations in that sense, and not shutting each other down in that respect, and I was not perfect at it, okay, neither was she. Nobody is perfect at these things in that respect, okay. This is what I mean with the Scarlet Woman archetype, and if you're wanting these genuine, open, and vulnerable relationship dynamics, you are going to make mistakes. Okay, it's inevitable. Okay, we're all human beings here. Okay, even if we're on processes of self-deification and we don't want to perceive ourselves as human, we are all human, and we are going to make inevitable mistakes when we have this person here who is literally acting as that core mirror that is breaking every aspect of our protective parts open and then exposing the vulnerable inner child that is underneath. Okay, and it's through this type of relationship dynamic where for me, I really learned what real masculinity is, and I'm continuously learning what real masculinity is, what the real masculine and feminine was actually supposed to do. Okay, referring to the pure primal masculine and feminine represented by the archetypes of Lilith and Samael. Okay, the archetypes of Lilith and Samael are direct manifestations, archetypes of that true, open, and vulnerable essence. If you look in Sumerian mythology, you could call it Tiamat and Absu. Okay, the primordial sexual union that represents both parties in the relationship dynamic completely naked and actually perceiving each other on a deep level, okay? Looking into each other's eyes and perceiving each other on a level which is far deeper than anybody has perceived you, okay? So what I'm saying is that this Scarlet Woman archetype is somebody who sees you, okay? Sees you, perceives you. What's more scary than being genuinely seen? Okay. Many people want to be seen. They're like, oh, I want to be seen. I want a relationship dynamic, but they're not prepared, yeah, for this level of alchemy. Okay, and this is why many people don't attract these types of partners because they're still based off of scarcity. But many people do attract these types of partners, and this is something which is going to be a very important message for the collective consciousness in the coming times, because the way that the masculine and feminine are built within our society is totally wrong. Okay, and I can't blame people who are in separation and wanting to keep everybody at arm's length. I can find extreme relatability with these people because I was no different. Okay, and I'm still in a continuous process of opening my heart, of shedding these different shells and getting to know myself on a deeper level. I can't blame the collective consciousness for not knowing how to have relationships, for not knowing how to be vulnerable, because the relationship dynamics that we have been taught are normal in society are completely and utterly fucked. It is as simple as that. Relationship dynamics that we have been programmed are normal are entirely fucked. Okay, it's no underestimation by any means whatsoever. Okay, these true primordial relationship dynamics, these primal masculine and feminine archetypes, is the key to evolution. Okay, is the key to evolution, but it means you have to shed the toxic masculinity. Okay, you have to shed the illusionary power dynamics, and you have to take ownership of where you went wrong. You have to take ownership of where you went wrong in relationship dynamics, of where you prefer separation over genuine openness and vulnerability. So understand that as a collective consciousness, we do have a way to go. But this is exactly why the Scarlet Woman archetype is a very present essence within occult-based initiation, because the purpose of occult-based initiation, particularly if you're wanting to go into the darker, more unconscious, shadowy aspects of it, which are all about individuation, then realistically speaking, you have to be ready and willing to face these different vulnerable aspects of yourself. And you have to want to get rid of these excess identity structures that were established specifically to keep you in the illusion of the masculine and feminine and the toxic archetypes of them. Okay. The demiurge, okay, the Gnostic gods, the Gnostic false god, rather, is literally all about falsehood and all about the controlling mechanisms that are weaving our illusionary reality together. We have to be willing to actually break out of those protective energies because this separation is safe. Okay, so the Scarlet Woman is an essential energy to embrace. And if you are on a genuine process of individuation, then you are going to need this archetype to evolve. And a normal relationship dynamic is not going to work in any way whatsoever. Okay, so this type of relationship is the most ancient form of relationship, the primordial union that birthed all of us into being. It is our role and responsibility, if we are on this genuine process of integration, to return to this original primal state. Absolutely essential topic to understand. And the core takeaway here is that you need relationships to evolve. Okay, it doesn't mean that time alone is not good. It doesn't mean that space is not good. It doesn't mean that you're leeching off of other people. It doesn't mean that it's a parasitic relationship dynamic. It simply means that you are taking ownership of the fact that being alone is far easier. Okay, being alone is far easier than actually being truly seen by somebody else. Massive subject, but I think that's everything that I needed to speak about in today's video. Definitely check out my membership programs. Definitely hit like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.